Disney's 5 keys, which we can apply to our practice, are safety, courtesy, show, and efficiency. The 5th one is inclusion. And so safety is always first. Even in our offices, we want to make sure that everything that we're doing, we're keeping the patients safe. Courtesy, show, and efficiency are all dealing with processes and understanding the type of person that's coming into our office. But that inclusion piece is a pretty critical point.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Orthopreneurs podcast. Today, I am fortunate enough not to have just a great person, but a great friend, somebody I really respect and love and have had some great times with over the years. Please put your hands together. Give a warm Orthopreneurs welcome to today's guest, Dr. Jason Kaplan.
Hey, Glenn, I am so glad to be here. This is, longtime fan.
First-time listener?
First-time listener, longtime fan. It's amazing what you've done for our profession, and to be able to help contribute to it and reach out to your viewership is truly an honor. So thank you for this opportunity to share whatever it is you want to talk with me about today.
You know how this goes. This isn't a contrived. I mean, there's some great podcasts out there. Chris Setta does an amazing job, getting his guests drunk and seeing where it goes. But he's got some great questions. And Kyle is less of a podcast, in my opinion, and more of a show, right? I always say he's like the Jimmy Fallon of orthodontics.
He's amazing.
And my approach has always been like having a cup of coffee with somebody I really want to get to know better, and asking questions and letting the conversation go where it goes, and have people listen in along the way. And so,
cool.
You and I know each other pretty well for a number of years, and I know there's a lot we know about each other, but there's also a lot of stuff I don't know. So today I'm really looking forward to uncovering some other fun stuff. And so, as I do with everybody, let's start here. However you want to frame it, how did you end up where you are? Whatever that means to you, like God to Adam in the Garden of Eden, Ayeka, where are you? How did you end up where you are?
I got to give the credit to my dentist. And so back when I was at the University of Kansas, I came back for my 6-month cleaning, and my dentist asked me, "What do you want to do with your education?" I said, "Well, I want to be an anesthesiologist." And
so did I. I wanted to be an anesthesiologist.
He said, "Why? Medicine's controlled by insurance. It's controlled. Like, you don't want to get into that. You really think about dentistry." So I thought about dentistry. I looked into it. I met with the dean of admissions at the University of Tennessee. He told me, these are the things that you want to do, how you want to prepare. Got accepted there. And while I was there, I met a great mentor, Bob Kine, who used to be the editor of the JCO, and he was out at USC. He invited me to his home to stay for a couple of weeks to do an internship there to see more about ortho, which was the guy's amazing. He's amazing. Was
it one of those Alpha Omega internships?
No. This was just come on out, see if you like what it is that we do. I think I sat with the residents. I listened to their courses. I've been some wires. I saw them just really just work as the team, and it was pretty special. The University of Tennessee was great also. I mean, we had Jim Baden while I was there. Ralph Behrens was there. And there was a lot to be learned at the University of Tennessee. But this was just another perspective. And where I ended up matching during that program was at the University of Detroit Mercy. The Kolbersches, Richard Kolbersch and Valmy Pangrazio Kolbersch. I mean, the most warm and loving people you could ever want to learn under. And they weren't about just jamming information down your throat. They wanted you to embrace it and to really love it. So after that, there was a job opportunity as an associate here in Atlanta. So my wife and I packed up the truckster, and we drove down 75 and from Detroit, and we got here. And then a few years later, after that associateship fell apart, we found a practice here in Dunwoody, and that has been really a godsend. So we've enjoyed the past 20 years as private practitioners here, and now as a partnership, which I'm hoping we can talk a little bit later.
We will.
But it's been awesome ride.
Beautiful, yeah. And just a quick shout out to the Kolbersches, because I first met them when I visited Detroit Mercy when I was applying to ortho, and I was there the day that everybody was doing, oddly enough, the day I was there was the day where everybody was doing their face bows, right? The fully adjustable face bows. And for
Teddy
me,
Freeland.
like he somehow caught wind of the fact that I had, he was questioning me about occlusion and stuff. And I said, "Oh yeah, I did 3 years of a anathological residency while I was practicing." on the side at the University of Washington. And immediately it was like, come into the office and let's talk. And we just sat there and talked occlusion. And, and I think if you know him well enough, politics, there was no way politics was not coming into the conversation. But they were so sweet and so kind. And years later, when I ended up coming back to do a lecture on clinical photography, at the request of the clinical director, just such an amazing human being, just nice to talk to him and get to know him. And one of those great couples you get to meet along the way. So I agree with you 100%.
So thankful.
So there's a lot to talk about. Let's start. Let's not make the whole podcast about this, but one thing you and I share in common, and best of all, I get to see you in about 6 weeks? Is it 6 weeks?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
mid-April.
I guess we have to figure out when's Passover and work backwards, right?
Oh my gosh.
So I get to see you in 4 to 6 weeks, somewhere in that range, in Tennessee. No, Kentucky,
Louisville.
at the Smile Doctors annual meeting.
Sure.
And it's one of the best parts about being incorporated with a group. I'm not going to say a group like Smile, with Smile Doctors, because there's many groups out there. Some have 20, 30, 40 doctors. Some have 300 or 400. And it's really nice to be able to go to Smile Doctors and see all of our friends and people we know and spend some time. But you incorporated, you really became part of Smile Doctors probably about, I'm going to guess, early 22. Would that be right?
Into 2021, yeah.
Okay, yeah, a couple of months after we did. And so, we could talk all day long about OSOs and DSOs, but, where I want to talk to you about this is that anybody who knows Jason Kaplan would characterize you as honest as the day is long. I don't think there's anybody who knows you that would ever say, "Oh, that guy embellishes, or that guy lies, or that guy." I mean, your character is beyond, any sort of attack. And so I think it's a great opportunity to ask you, when it comes to associating with OSOs, DSOs, there's so much misinformation out there. There's so many people who think they have the answers. And oddly enough, the ones who speak the loudest are the ones who aren't involved and never did the research. I mean, there's some very good names out there, big names, who've been involved in debates and what have you, who honestly show that they know nothing about the concept. So if you would do me a favor,
Sure.
we're not looking to sort of pump up Smile Doctors. They're doing just fine on their own. But when it comes to talking about associating, or what are some of the things that you would say you've heard out there that you personally would say, I disagree with that. I don't think that's true. Is there anything that comes to mind? Because we haven't rehearsed this, and I'm sorry for putting you on the spot.
No, it's okay.
What kind of things have you heard out there that, being the honest man you are, you could sort of set the record straight a little bit about?
I just had this conversation with a guy, a colleague who practices in North Georgia, and his big concern was, I hear you're going to lose control. Loss of control. Don't have any creative ability. Can't use the appliances that you want to use. And maybe at one time the idea was everybody under one umbrella, everybody does the same thing, and we kind of McDonald's it, right? It's
right.
We keep everything very low cost and we just push it through. And that is not how we are as a people, as a profession. And so let me dispel that rumor. There is nothing that I'm doing in my practice that is any different than what I did before I affiliated. I'm not choosing a different appliance. I'm not using different braces. Whatever it is I want to use, I can use. And if anything, the great advantage is I'm watching my overhead costs come down, because there is this value in being able to get prices for whether it's disposable or non-disposable items at a reduced cost. And so I'm seeing that as a great benefit. But if you have this fear that you're not going to be able to use a Herbst, or you can't use your specific bracket, or whatever clear aligner you love, that, at least in my experience, is a total myth. And because that would have been a deal breaker if I had to fall under the umbrella of somebody telling me this is what I needed to do.
Yeah. And there, first, thanks for the honesty. And there was a time, for people out there who know the history, there was a time 3.5, 4 years ago where Smile Doctors, for instance, called every practice Smile Doctors. If Jason Kaplan, DDS, MS, decided to sell his practice to Smile Doctors and partner with them, the practice name would become Smile Doctors. The phone would get answered Smile Doctors. The door would read Smile Doctors. But then they, around the time that Ben Fishbein joined, it sort of went away. And I personally would never have joined something that changed my name. And there's some great people who did. I mean, Tanya Volk and Ryan Hurley. I mean, one of the greatest practices I've ever had a chance to step foot into. A
Amazing.
hummingbird client, right? Just like yourself.
Right.
Amazing practice. They got converted to a Smile Doctors back in the day. And so they learned their lesson, Smile Doctors did, and realized that, that's not the path to follow. And like you said, I would echo that, you're not told what to do. You're not told how to do it. You're going to get a lot of organizational support from things like HR, where you're going to have to follow some rules with HR. Marketing, you get organizational support with marketing, which
Sure.
is really good. But yeah, on day to day, people think they live under the specter of some large eye looking down on them and telling them what to do. And I agree with you
No,
100%.
no,
Overall, since we're on the topic, what advice would you give to anybody who is saying, because I hear people say, "Oh, I'd never join an OSO," and I'm like, "Okay, whatever." I was on a podcast, Kyle Fagula's podcast, where there was a pros and cons of joining, and the money side of things.
sure.
And the person who I was quote unquote debating against, and it wasn't really a debate, but it wasn't until the end of the conversation that they disclosed, "Oh yeah, and I've got a group of people that you can join if you want to, that are private practitioners." And I'm going, there's an agenda here, folks, and you just have to be careful who's giving you information. And so, if someone said, "Look, I'm not really sure if this is for me. I don't know if I really want to join an OSO or a DSO." From your experience, having gone through the process, you know, what would you tell them to do if they were just not sure? I have heard there's lots of really good money that can come your way. I
Yeah.
heard that you can get equity that can really help set you up for retirement. And we're going to talk about that retirement with you in just a moment. We'll segue into that. But I've heard all these great financial things of it, but there's all these guys and gals that they would tell me, "Don't do it. It's a huge mistake." What would you give advice to people who said, "I really don't, I'm going to be honest with myself and say, I really don't know enough to know enough." What should they do?
I think we need to really distill it a little bit, because people are making these grand statements of I would never, and I would never use a Herbst appliance. I would never use Invisalign. I would, and we hear these things over the years from other practitioners. And the reality is you have an obligation, just like you would with any appliance or any technique, to do your due diligence and ask the questions and dig in on, why am I even looking at this? What is the true value specifically for me? In my case, when I came out of COVID and I saw what was going on in my practice, wasn't declining, it wasn't dying, but I saw that my team members were struggling to. They wouldn't go to the doctor, they wouldn't take care of themselves the way they needed to. They were paid very well, and so there were needs that I thought could be best matched by partnering with someone. It wasn't just about, okay, I'm going to walk away with a big check. That to me is the worst thing that you could possibly do for yourself. Is that if you just look at it from a financial standpoint and say, my life is only going to get better because I'm receiving a chunk of money or some equity. There has to be a value. It has to be within your morals, within your personal values, that you align with this, and that it's going to be best for you. So ask the questions that you would ask, and talk to everybody. I know I spoke with you, Glenn. I talked with
Yeah.
Ryan and Tanya because I've known them for years. I talked with a number of OSOs. And I would ask the same questions over and over. And here's the piece that people don't know yet. Here it is. You are going to sweat this decision. Yeah, get closer. You're going to sweat this decision like nothing else,
Yeah.
because it is going to give you restless nights. You have built this beautiful company for yourself and for your family. Built it for your team and for patients, and you think that you're letting it go. But the reality is that all you're doing is you're embellishing it. On the plus side, you're giving it more value, because you happen to have this opportunity to partner with some of the greatest practices, whichever OSO you're going. I know folks in every single one of them, and there are great practices out there. You're only making yourself better by having access to this. So if the money component is all that you see, you've really missed the forest for the trees. You
Yeah.
missed it.
There's so many good I always talk about the money because it is Orthopreneurs. So I talk about the money side of it, but if it doesn't align with your morals, if it doesn't align with your personal values, then you
Yeah,
shouldn't be doing it. And then that comes down to the group you join as well. It has to check all the boxes. And so I don't want to beat that horse to death. I want to jump in a little bit more into retirement, because
sure.
we did talk about a big chunk of change. And if someone gives you an extra $2, $4, $6, $10 million, it certainly helps you towards retirement. But I know retirement is something you're passionate about. And so I'm going to give you the platform and let you talk a little bit about what's on your mind.
Thank you. I didn't grow up with a ton of money. We came from a lower middle class family. I this is not a sob story. This is just where I was in life. Literally lived on the other side of the tracks, as the joke goes. All the wealthy Jews, all the wealthy people seem to live on the north side of the city, and I lived on the south side of the city. So, here I'm having these fantasies that my rich uncle out of nowhere is going to come in and drop a big pile of money to my family, and we're going to live happily ever after in this mansion. And that's not what it is. And what I learned is that I had this desire, this grit to really dig in and do the best that I could, with the intention of leaving my kids a sum of money to help them move forward. We hear this term generational wealth. Glenn, you've spoken on it many, many times, and in reference to the OSO. But I'm talking about, it doesn't even matter if it's with the OSO or not. This is about, what are you going to do with that money, and how are you going to enjoy it? Because when you're gone, you can't take it with you. So what is the best way to enjoy it right now? Let me tell you a quick story. My son Pace, this is my 17-year-old, almost 18-year-old, is going to be leaving on his gap year to Israel. And he is trying to make a decision on which gap year programs he's going to go on. And one has a significant cost, and the other one has a less significant but still significant cost. And if you're going out of state anywhere, you're talking, you're going to spend $250,000 just to send your kid to college. If there's not a big financial, if you're not going to get a lot of tuition assistance. So he says to us, he says, Dad, if I go to University of Maryland, for example, and I do this program called Kivunim, is it going to hurt you and Mom in your ability to be able to do the things that you want to do? I'm like, oh, who is this kid? Yeah. And so I said to him, no, buddy, the reason why we work is so that you can get this education and you can be successful for yourself. This is where our money needs to go. So that leads us to Bill Perkins. And Bill Perkins is if you don't know who he is an entrepreneur. He's an engineer. He made a boatload of money very, very young. And he wrote a book called Die with Zero. And the idea is, enjoy your money and give it to the people when they need it. So your kids need a new house. Kids need a house. They need college money. They need money for a car. Well, when you pass away, God willing, you live to 120, but if you pass away before then, and they're in their 70s, they've already made their money if you pass at 90, or they've made their money when they're 60. So give it to them when they really need it. And it's really changed my mindset on how we're going to take care of our family and what is creation of generational wealth. It's really the idea of giving them a leg up when they absolutely need it, not when they've already struggled through it and then made whatever it is they're going to make. So my wife's name is Leanne. We're coming up on 27 years of marriage, and she would give all of our money away. Thank you. All of our money she would give to nonprofits. All of it would go to Jewish day schools or things that are near and dear to our hearts in order to help.
Warriors. Thank you.
That's Embracing Our Warriors.
Thank you for the very generous donation.
You're welcome. That was a privilege to be able to do that. So we look at it as, how are we going to set the example for our children? And our children watch us very, very closely. The people who we associate with, our team members, watch us where we give our money. So this retirement idea of finally cashing in and saying, you know what, here are the keys back to here are the keys to the house. I'm done. And then, riding off into the sunset with 8 figures, 9 figures, it's not going to matter unless it actually has a good purpose for it. So, we are taking the approach now is, what can we do to better it for those around us while we're here, to really see the joy, because we will get joy, tremendous joy of watching that happen. If you've ever donated any money out of your personal, not through your business, but just I'm giving a check out of my personal, it feels so amazing to be able to do that. So retirement for me is not just about how much money it's there, but is how I'm going to use that to better the world. Tikkun Olam. What am I going to do about that?
Hey everybody, tickets for Summit 2025 are on sale now. Take a listen to what some of the attendees from Summit 2024 had to say.
This is one of the most unique, most impactful meetings that you can go to as an orthodontist.
It has everything compared to other meetings. Entertainment, the content in the meeting, the speakers, the food.
I learned a lot. It helps the practice, so it really kind of checks all the boxes.
You hope to get something out of it that is going to pay dividends for years to come.
Definitely return on your investment.
We take back a lot to our office.
You get information that you probably don't get easily at any other meeting.
And by the way, it's a great concept. I think it's important for people like you. I'm not going to include myself just for simple, because I'm the narrator of the story right now. But for people like yourself, it's very important to recognize that not everybody's built the way you are, right? Writing a check out of their own account for charity doesn't make everybody feel good. It makes you feel good. Honestly, it makes me feel good. But, there's the old story about the rabbi who went to Miami Beach, famous guy, and would go from house to house trying to get money. And he came to this very wealthy man's home, and he sat there and he pulled out the checkbook, but he didn't sign anything. And he kept waiting and talking to him. And, 20 minutes goes by, 40 minutes go by, and he's just not writing a check. And ultimately, after about an hour and a half of being with him, he finally wrote a check for the charity. Why? Because some people are very quick to charity. Others need time. They need time to think about it. They need to wonder about it. And for some people, they don't write anything. But the concept is a beautiful one. And I agree with you. The book is a great book. I read it a while ago when it came out. And again, it's always been my attitude of, don't save it for, posthumously. Make sure that your family's taken care of. Make sure you've got what you need. But enjoy it. Take your family on trips. Help them buy a home. Do the things that are going to change their life for the better, and in return, will change your life for the better in so many good ways.
I think we see that now, right, Glenn, in general, is that we are a people of experiences now. We're always looking for experiences. What's going to be that next serotonin hit? What's going to give us that joy, that excitement? And you can look at your bank account and you can see that you've got 8 figures, 9 figures, and be really, really stoked about it. But that's on a screen. That's not alive. And how do you make it alive?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a great interview I saw with a Silicon Valley guy. I don't know who he was. I'm sure he's famous, but it's been a few years since I saw it. And I think he started a company in his 20s, sold it for many, many millions of dollars, and then started a second company and sold that. And just really, really successful entrepreneur. And they were questioning him in an interview, and he said something that really blew my mind. And it's got to probably be now 7 to 10 years since I saw the interview. But he said, if you take me, Jason, or you, we're not that far apart in age. But if we look at ourselves and say, when we were kids, in our synagogue, let's just use it as an example, right? You didn't grow up in the rich part of town, but you saw a guy driving a really nice car. Yeah. You said, wow, he drives a really nice car. That car is really cool. One day I'll drive a nice car like that and I'll be really cool, right? Or that's a beautiful home that person has, the gorgeous home. And man, he's got such a great life. Maybe one day I'll have a house like that and I'll have a great life. It could even be a country club, any number of things. And what he said was that millennials, and now it would apply to Gen Z, they see life through a different lens. It's not the big car. It's not the fancy country club. It's not the house. It's about experiences, just like you said. Yeah. Hey, check out that guy on Instagram who's at Burning Man, right? God, he looks so cool. One day I'll be at Burning Man, right? Or look at this person at Ibiza. They look so cool. One day I'll be at Ibiza. And that's kind of where things are shifted to smaller homes, less expensive cars in many instances, but a lot more travel, a lot more trips. And that's, for me, that's where I've really spent a lot of my time with my family is just going everywhere I can go with them and take them wherever I can. My kids are out of the house for the most part at this point. But when they do, you'll learn, you got to bribe them. You got to take them somewhere. So we did Japan a couple of months ago for 12 days together. And,
bucket list.
We're going to go to New York for their 21st birthday, my twins. And it's just like you said, given the choice between having a fair amount of money, knowing that I can retire, and spending a huge amount of time with my family and money on them, or having a massive sum when you retire and just shooting for the stars and trying to get bigger and bigger and celebrating every new zero on the end of your account. Yeah. It's not even a close call, right?
I mean, it's a philosophical change, and I don't expect everyone to buy into it. This is how I see it, and it's what makes me happy. You mentioned about seeing your kids. My kids used to ask me. I'm sure we'll talk about it in a little bit, but we visit Walt Disney World Resort quite often, and my kids used to say to me, like, Dad, like, why are we going out of town again? Like, why are we leaving? Why are we doing this? And I said to them, guys, the only time I get to see you and really get to spend time with you is when we are not here in Atlanta. And so I get you 24/7, as good or as bad as it is. I get you all to myself with your mother. Like, it's awesome. And they get it now. Like, it took them some time, but they understand it. They appreciate the moments that we get to spend together.
It's true. And I'll put a bow on it in telling you that in 2011, I sold my practice at the end of 2010, my restorative practice, with the hope to go to ortho. When I didn't get in, I already had somebody who wanted to buy my practice, and I had given my word ahead of time that whether I got in or didn't get in, he would get my practice because he was tying up his whole life, young man, Matt Pavlovich, love him to death. I think he's in Bend, Oregon now. And I said, he said, if you don't get in, Glenn, will you still sell me the practice? I said, absolutely. And so I didn't get in the first time through, something Stu Frost and I have in common. And I ended up, working with him for another 3, 4, 5 months. But ultimately, for whatever reason, the practice couldn't support the two of us. So I said to him, let me give you the summer to yourself. I had money, but I didn't have a ton of money. I was about to start school. And I just took my family with me in our Suburban, our Yukon XL. And I traveled the country for 6 weeks with my wife and our 3 kids. And they were, I think at the time, 10, 7, and 7. And, I ended up having to take out student loans in the school. And I ended up going through my entire savings and a lot of my retirement going through ortho residency. But I would never, ever, ever trade the money I spent on my kids on that trip to having had an easier life in ortho residency. It's not, money comes and goes. Chris Trockle, who I'm going to credit with this statement, Chris Trockle, who, his name is inscribed on this this time. I don't know what you call the sand timer. He said it at one of our Orthopreneurs RD meetings in the past year. He said, "Money comes and goes, but time only goes." And it's truer words have never been spoken. And so I know you embody that, and I appreciate you bringing that up. But you did mention the D word.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
We can definitely talk about
everybody,
the D.
Buckle up, because it's about to get real. Because when you bring Jason Kaplan into a discussion about Disney, it's going to get real. So let's start here. You hold a distinction. Are you or are you not? This is really me not knowing. Are you
careful.
a Disney mom?
So I was.
You're a Disney mom.
Yeah, that has since changed. We've had some. Now men can be moms, and no, I'm just messing around.
You identified as a Disney mom.
Here's what it was. A little over 16 years ago, the Walt Disney Company, the media portion of the Walt Disney Company, thought that it would be a great idea if they had a lay-led panel where they would hire these folks. They actually wouldn't pay them any cash. What they would do is they would pay them in trips or in gift cards to be able to offer free advice on an online forum. Seems pretty simple. I mean, sounds like great, especially if you're a huge Disney fan and you've been a billion times. And so it was called the Disney Moms Panel, and then it evolved to the Disney Parks Moms Panel, and now what it's called is Plan Disney. And there are over 250 panelists who have come and gone over the years, offering advice through this online forum to be able to help guests with bespoke answers to their specific Disney questions. And it can be something as outrageous as this, like, I've got a severe oak pollen allergy. What is the best resort for me to stay at? Now, there's no one who knows that answer. I mean, zero, because it's a brand new question. So as a panelist, you have to look at that question, and it's a la carte. You choose the questions that you want to answer based on your expertise or on how much time that you have and what your challenge is. So I'm talking to the head of horticulture, and I'm asking him, where is the best place to stay? He pulls out the map, the 43 square mile map, and looks at all the resorts, and he's looking for where the highest concentration of oak trees are. And here's what he says to me. He says, right now it's the Polynesian. That's where you should tell the guests that they should stay.
That's amazing.
Or they should stay at Disney's Art of Animation. But in about 5 years, they can't stay at Art of Animation because the oak trees will have grown to such a size that the pollen spores will just destroy them. holy smokes.
That's amazing.
So like so at one time, yes, a Disney mom, but now it's not just moms that are on. It's not just parents. It's grandparents. It's singles. It's millennials. It's same-sex couples. It's whatever it is that represents Disney, which is all encompassing, which actually could lead us to something that's really important. If I may, I want to talk just for a moment about the 5 keys, Disney's 5 keys.
Sure,
And
for it.
the 5 keys, which we can apply to our practice, are safety, courtesy, efficiency, show, and efficiency. The 5th one, which was added in September of 2020, is inclusion, because people they weren't feeling included. When you look at the cast members who work for the company, a cast member is an employee. Walt always looked at his employees as they were part of the show, and want to make sure that everybody feels that they have an involvement. They are respected and they are cared for by the Walt Disney Company. And so safety is always first. Even in our offices, we want to make sure that everything that we're doing, we're keeping the patients safe. We're keeping any guest that walks through our front door who is on stage, not backstage, not in the areas we will try to keep hidden, but on stage, has a great experience and that they're taken care of. We will always
I'm looking for my book, by the way, Lessons from the Mouse.
Yes. Well, mine's like right here.
It's like that's front stage, backstage that every doctor should read.
Every doctor should read this book. Courtesy, show, and efficiency are all dealing with processes and understanding the type of person that's coming into our office. But that inclusion piece is a pretty critical point. And it raised some eyebrows when it came out, because remember, 2020 and it's September, we're still in the throes of COVID. I think California is still shut down in September of 2020. Georgia, by the way, opened within 4 or 5 weeks of COVID. And so we had a very different perspective here in Atlanta about what was going on. But they really wanted to make sure they were making statements and writing things that may have been considered wrong over time. A very big step in the culture piece of what goes on over at the Walt Disney Company. Those types of things, those decisions are really the things that drove me to Disney. And it actually all started with a simple lecture called The 10 Things I Learned While I Was at Disney by an orthodontist in Montreal. His name is Paul Korn, one of the best orthodontists you guys could ever meet. If you know Paul, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He's an amazing gentleman and a scholar. I was a part of Study Club 2. This is Karen Moad's Hummingbird group. And I can't say enough amazing things about Karen Moad and the group, the people that she brings together to be able to share ideas. There are other groups that are out there, but this Hummingbird group is very different than a Schulman group. It's very different than maybe some of the other groups that are out there, Impact 360. These are like-minded people, not just because of what they're doing, what they're producing, but just how their synergy of when they come together. So I got to be a part of that group initially as an associate, and then what I found out years later was that there was a request by the membership of Study Club 2 to help me stay on, which I thought was pretty amazing. So I love those guys. Ryan and Tanya, they were a part of Study Club 2. Goldie, Mike Goldstein, a part of Study Club 2. So there's just a number of really classy classy individuals, fun individuals that bring a whole different perspective on life. But Paul gave this presentation, and I had just gotten back from Disney, and I'm listening to the things that he is talking about. I'm like, he's absolutely right. Like, where's the trash? Where is it? There are trash cans all over the place, but Disney makes sure that the showpiece, when you're walking around, that everything is in its spot. And I say that to my team all the time. This can't be out. We cannot have this out because it doesn't present the type of atmosphere that we want people to experience. I have my logo is a Circle K. Nothing amazing. Actually, Karen Moad, one of the funny story about her, I drive her up to my office and she sees that Circle K and she says, you know what? That Circle K reminds me of a gas station. Now, Karen is not someone who's going to hold back if she thinks that there's something that could be changed. And I said, you know what it reminds all the Jews in this area of? It reminds that it's something that's kosher. And she goes, oh, then we're keeping that thing. You know, was really hilarious.
Circle. For
So
those of you out there who don't know, kosher food um, has a mark on it, a certification, if you will. And there are many agencies that go into the factories and observe the food and make sure that, for instance, someone is eating, just in a very blatant violation, is not eating pork while the cookies are being baked, right? So and that's at the simplest level. But at the end of the
yeah,
day, they put their stamp on the box, and that means that anybody who keeps kosher can buy that, knowing full well that they're buying kosher food. Well, one of the famous groups that does it is the Circle K, and that's why when Jason says it, it makes lets Jewish people know it's kosher, because the Circle K is a standard sort of mark of kosher food. So I felt like I had to explain that, Jason, because you and I
totally.
understand it, but I don't think anybody else does.
Yeah, and it's part of my makeup, and I wasn't doing it specifically to market to these people, but Kaplan Orthodontics, a O and a K. I mean, it makes sense. There are plenty of other Circle Ks I'm sure that are out there, but that was pretty funny. But I have
That's
this
great.
rug. I have this rug, and on rainy days, this rug, which is my Circle K, gets destroyed. I mean, its filth gets tracked all over it, and it is such poor show. So what do? We bought an industrial cleaner because we need to make sure that that rug always stays clean. It's the welcome moment when you walk in. We cannot have something that is disgusting and it looks out of place, or else people will have opinions on what goes on. Right.
Yeah.
So that is something that when Paul presented it to me, it really meant a lot. And as we started going to Disney and I got to talk to cast members and see how they function and go through the Disney Institute and take their courses and see at the core, while they are not perfect and there is no perfect company out there, they do so many things very well on a scale that we can't even understand. There's a restaurant in Magic Kingdom Park called Cosmic Rays Starlight Cafe.
I've had my
It
kosher
it
food there.
they they make more burgers and fries than anybody else in the world on a daily basis. Anybody,
Really?
because there are 50 to 70,000 people that are walking through the gate, that are walking through the tap style, on their way to have their enchanted magical experience. And Cosmic Ray, I mean, how could you not go there? I mean, Sonny Eclipse is the guy playing the keyboard, telling you that, the silly loungy jokes. And it's incredible. And when you talk to the cast members and say, how do you do this? It's not easy. They work really hard to make sure that that quality, whether you like their food or not, that is the same every single time. And it's on demand. So none of this stuff is just like hanging out in the back warm. These are made, and over all day long, 12 hours a day, pumping out French fries and burgers and chicken sandwiches. So you have to, when you see a company that can do that, and you say to yourself, I can't even keep my 6 chair, my 8 chair, 12 chair, whatever the size of your office is. I can't keep that clean. It is ridiculous because somebody can do it on such a grand scale, and you have to build it into the values of your company. And so the reason why it stays so perfect is because the value is there, and people they drink the Kool-Aid, they buy into it. How many people are wearing your t-shirts out there for Krieger Orthodontics? They're people, but look, Disney, I mean, come on. This is not a sporting event where everybody's going and they're wearing their Eagles gear or their Chiefs gear or Texans or Titans, wherever, or Falcons, whatever it is. This is Disney, and people wear, grown men with giant beards, with giant beer bellies, wearing mouse ears. I mean, come on, man. It's ridiculous.
It is.
And so they build that. There is something special about that they create these raving fans. And to take some of that magic and just to try to squeeze a little bit of it out and pixie dust it in my office is a challenge that that I think is worthwhile. And learning more about it is worthwhile.
I agree, 100%. And I want to segue us into, we're getting a little lower on time, but there's 2 topics I want to hit, and I'm going to let you pick which one you want to go to next. We can talk about gratitude, or we can talk about exercise. Where do you want to start?
Ooh.
I know both are important in your life.
Let's talk about gratitude, because it's something that exercise,
Sure.
also something that I struggle with. But gratitude, I think, is something that we're all missing tremendously.
Yeah. So please, I know it's something you're very passionate about. Talk to me. Tell me a little bit about what your thoughts are when it comes to the concept of gratitude and why it means so much to you. Because I agree with you 100%. I think there's way too little of it in the world today. Not enough thank you, please. And if you dare say to somebody, it's my pleasure, they say, oh, did you ever work at Chick-fil-A? I'm like, I was saying my pleasure well before Chick-fil-A started.
We used to drive to Orlando quite regularly. And every time we would go through a toll, I would say to the toll booth agent, I would say, good afternoon, good morning. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for taking care of me. I hope you have a wonderful day. And my wife said to me, like, why are you doing that? Like, why are you, this person's, it's not going to mean really anything to them. I said, I guarantee you this person is going to see 2,000 people, 4,000 people today, and
Yeah.
not one person is going to take an opportunity to say hello and ask them about them and to say thank you. And that small moment in their day could turn what could have been an awful morning for them. They got a flat tire, they were running late, their boss yelled at them, whatever it was, into a really special moment. And we are where we are right now because somebody trusted us. Somebody said to us, I like what you have to say, and I like the type of person you are, and you seem to be of sound moral character, and your plan makes sense. I'm going to entrust my child with you. Well, or I'm going to entrust myself with you. And I started to learn that, and very late, by the way, this wasn't early on in my career. I had to go through a lot of arrogance and frustration. I actually have to give credit to Mike Goldstein on this. He said to me one time, like, you are taking the defeatists, the victim approach to a lot of things in your life. And you need to change that right now. And it needs to start with gratitude. So I credit Goldie bigly for
Nice.
this because it took him to pull me aside. And he used some other choice language, which is classic Goldie. But I'll leave that off the podcast in order to show that to me. So every time a patient comes in, I say, thank you for coming in today. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to see you. I thank my children for when they do something anytime, because repetition creates that habit. And if you're constantly showing someone that you're thankful for the things that they are doing for you, then and you should not expect it in return, by the way. And you shouldn't be offended if somebody doesn't show you the same gratitude. That's their issue. This is about what you're doing for someone else, and it shows your type of character. So all of those little things, thank you, Glenn, for allowing me to share these moments on your show. Thank you to the person at the grocery store for helping me, even if they had to scan, that heavy item that at Costco that you don't want to lift out of the basket. They come over with their scanner to take care of it for you. All of those moments of gratitude build a tremendous amount of self-worth and build a culture within yourself of taking care of people. So gratitude is the attitude, and I think it's really important for people to not lose sight that nobody owes you anything. You may think you deserve to be an orthodontist. I'm very, very staunch on this. You think you deserve to be an orthodontist? Somebody granted you access into that residency. Somebody took a chance on you, and you should, like I am to the Colbershes, I will forever be thankful. And to my classmates who helped me along, and to the residents a year ahead and the year behind, the same thing. I mean, this is something that is, every day that you wake up, you should be thankful. Modani, thank you for.
Yeah.
There's a series of blessings that we say in the morning that says, thank you for allowing me to wake up. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to have this day. And when you start out by thanking, then all you have left to do for the rest of the day is you have this gratitude for being able to experience more of the world. So when you're down and you think, God, life is tough. I didn't make this much money this year. I didn't level that marginal ridge, and I still took their braces off. Guess what? That person's going to live, and they are so thankful that you did things for them, but you should be thankful that they trusted you to take care of them.
I love that. Yeah. And again, my kids would make fun of me as well when they were younger. Dad, you're saying so much. Please, thank you. Like, yeah, that's how I was raised. you give gratitude. And it's unfortunate that in today's day and age, you know, there's not enough pleases and thank yous and all the other stuff that goes with it. And you hear me say it a lot in my podcast and online. Like, just make someone's day today. Just do something. Just do something
Yes.
nice to make someone's day a good one. And so, with the limited time we have left, I know exercise has transformed your life.
Yes.
Tell everybody your story. Tell them a little bit about why exercise means something to you, particularly maybe perhaps a Peloton or something.
Listen, when you're younger and you're the fat kid always, and your parents are buying you Husky jeans, that's not a compliment, right? That's not a Husky. Yeah. You never had Husky jeans? Oh, these are for
I fortunately was never, ever in the Husky department.
Well, I was in the Husky department, and it's quite embarrassing. And my family struggles on both sides of my family struggle with weight loss. And I've lost and gained more weight than a school bus full of kids. Like, I have just gained. It's just the way that it's ebbed and flowed. And a few years back, I was playing with my kids, and I realized, like, I was tired. I was out of breath tying my shoes. Come on. Like, you bend over to tie your shoes and you're winded. I mean, that is absolutely pathetic.
Down, man.
So it leads to a lot of other things, and it leads to depression. It leads to anxiety. It leads to you devalue yourself when you can't do the things that seem that should be so simple. So I have a very close friend who practices in Montgomery, Texas. His name is Chad Arthur. He is awesome. If you ever get a chance to meet Chad, the guy's got opinions on everything. He's a fantastic clinician. I'll give you a big shout out, Chad, for this. But he called me during COVID and he said, you're not sounding good. Like, you're not in a good place. You need to buy a Peloton. And I'm like, no. I'm not going to spend the money on it. So I yelled down to Leanne. I'm like, hey, Leanne, I'm going to buy a Peloton. I'm going to call Mary. I was a part of Mary's List, Mary's group.
I remember when that whole thing went down with Mary's List and the Peloton orders.
It was great. So I ordered my Peloton, and that day I jumped right on it, and the weight just shed, and I was stronger, and I was happier, and the endorphins were going. It was an amazing experience. And it doesn't have to be a Peloton. It can be just walking outside. A new study just came out that just said even a half an hour of walking will help you decrease your likelihood as you get older of sarcopenia and degradation of your muscles and fragility of your bones. So, like, it doesn't have to be Peloton. It doesn't have to be that you're going out and being a world-class weightlifter. What it does is it's just moments of movement and being careful about the types of things that you eat so that you can be healthy and you can live a fulfilled life. My favorite thing that Matt Wilpers says is that he's like, you should get fit. Matt Wilpers is one of the trainers for Power Zone training on
Georgia
boy.
The
Peloton coach. He's a Georgia boy, Georgia State grad. And I love riding with him. So he'll say stuff like, doing these rides will help you experience your vacations completely differently because you'll be able to approach those hikes, those more strenuous activities that you would shun away from, and you'll be able to see more of the world. And he is absolutely right. We were in the Canadian Rockies a few years ago, and there's this hike up in Banff up to a little tea house, and then beyond that, you can go up to something called the Big Beehive, and that is a mother of a hike. At least for me, it was. Some other people it would be very easy, but I mean, it took an hour or so just to get up. It had 15 switchbacks. It was something, and wow. I was so glad I was able to do it. I actually have a picture of me holding my hands up at the top, like I made it. And I wouldn't have been able to do that had it not been for some sound advice, a lot of grit, and putting in the time to take care of myself. So take care of yourselves. You are the only you. So if you don't have the opportunity, you don't take the opportunity to treat yourself right, then you won't have those opportunities to spend time with the family and your friends and enjoy the experiences of life.
As the old saying would go, im ein ani li mi li, right? If I am not for myself, who will be, right? It's a very famous Jewish statement that's told to kids from the time they're 4 years old. And it's an important one. You got to take care of yourself, folks. Put your oxygen mask on before you help others, always, right? And so thank you for sharing your oxygen here with everybody, Jason, because you're an amazing guy. You're not just one of my favorite people. Anybody who knows Jason Kaplan holds you in just the highest regard, and
Thank you.
You're all of our favorite people.
Thank you.
And so, thanks for everything you covered, from Disney to gratitude to retirement, smile doctors, and exercise. I mean, these are some good topics we got here. And so, just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today, Jason. Looking forward to lots of good times together.
Thank you, Glenn. I had a great time.
All right. Take care, my friend. And I will see you hopefully in the not too distant future.
Let's go.